Fly ball, center field. It's hit deep. Out toward Monty's angle. It is number 50. 2 pitch to Bell. Swing and a miss. He got him. It's a 3-hit shutout.
I don't know any bigger than this right here. That ball was center cut. That's a bad mistake. 0-2 with nobody on.
Yep. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Bryce Harper. Suarez delivers. Swing and a drive. Left field. It's deep. It's going. Yes! And it is gone. Yes!
What is going on, everybody? You know the voice, but this is a new podcast, I guess you could say. Not really. So I've been having a bit of a hard time figuring out how to word, the rebrand the last couple of days, because it's not a new podcast. Obviously, if you're here previously, Luke and I on the Phillies, that's what it's been for the last couple of years. Sean Brace back at Fox Sports The Gambler. We did a ton of stuff over there. Good buddy still to this day. Obviously, he is, Mr. Busy Man now with 97.5 The Fanatic. I've been joining him a few times on there. But this is the debut episode of Phillies Report with Luke Arcaini here. If you're watching on Twitter or X, thank you. If you're watching on the YouTube for Pick Swap Media, thank you. I'm in the process of also creating a YouTube for this that'll go along with Pick Swap. I'm not the best as far as back end on YouTube, but I'm learning as we go. And if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, thank you again. But this is the first, and you could call it debut episode of Phillies Report, sponsored by FOCO, as we always are on here. You can see a couple. There's one. There's another one up there. Bobbleheads, overalls, hats. They have everything. They have everything at FOCO. There's always a link in my Twitter bio. There's a link. Should be the YouTube description. If not, I will get it down in the comments. But thank you guys for joining. This is a cool one for me. Been really wanting to bring the podcast back. I've loved, obviously I love writing, but I really, really love talking about the Phillies, and the podcast got on a little bit of a halt last year. Not anybody's fault other than mine. Just got a little busy last year, put it on the back burner. Do not want to do that again. So this will be at least once a week. Phillies Report will be coming to you through stream, through Apple, through Spotify, through everything. Wherever you get your podcasts, we're available there. But this is officially the debuted episode of Phillies Report. And I just want to get this out there in the beginning. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, throw me a follow on Twitter at Arcaini Luke. You'll know every time we're going live here on X, on Twitter, on YouTube, before it happens. If you are a visual podcast person like I am, I like to watch podcasts instead of listening to podcasts. There will always be a warning. There will always be when it's coming. There will never just be a random, unless it's some crazy trade and it's, live in 5 minutes. But there will always be a warning here. This is the debut episode. And one more thing before we get into some of the things we're going to talk about today here on Phillies Report with Luke Arcaini. If you're watching on the stream, always live stream, drop any thoughts, replies, comments, concerns, anything down in the YouTube chat, down in the Twitter chat. We're going to answer all questions. I said when I first announced the podcast that we'll talk about anything. Someone asked me if we want to talk about Bigfoot. I'll talk about Bigfoot if you want to talk about Bigfoot. Last episode, we reviewed half of the Zach Bryan album. We're going to do whatever you guys want. Drop everything down in the replies. But once again, thank you guys for being here. This is very exciting to finally get this rolling again. So I thought about what I wanted to talk about today. And one of the bigger things that I've seen over, I guess it's the last 4 days, maybe 4 or 5 days, was the whole Harrison Bader situation. If you didn't know, Harrison Bader signed a 2-year, $20.5 million deal with the San Francisco Giants, going to get the chance to play every day for them out at Oracle Park in center field, it seems. But I think fans are starting to overrate Harrison Bader a little bit. Harrison Bader came here from the Twins last year, was an unbelievable pickup for the Phillies at the time, and it's funny looking back on it, because when the Phillies traded for Harrison Bader, the deadline, like a couple hours before the actual deadline, it did not go over well from fans. It was a lot of, is this it? This is the bad acquisition. This is the only guy we're getting for the lineup. And he turned into the spark that the Phillies needed, especially in their outfield. We all know the situation of the Phillies outfield. But I think fans are starting to overrate Harrison Bader a little bit. And that's not saying he's a bad player. He's not. He's a good baseball player. Why fans are starting to overrate Harrison Bader is because he was a great baseball player in the 3 months that he was in Philadelphia. If you go and you look back on Harrison Bader's career, right? He had a 778 OPS with the Twins before he came to Philly last year. Last year was probably his best full season put together, especially with the Phillies. He had a 796 OPS last year overall on the year combined with the Twins. You go back to 2024. He had a 657 OPS. You go back to 2023, he had a 622 OPS. You go back to 2022, he had a 650 OPS. You go to 2021, 785. But it's since 2022, Harrison Bader has been a fourth outfielder. And the tough part for the Phillies is that going back and looking at some of Harrison Bader's stats from, 2024 back to 2022, I guess you could say, that's a fourth outfielder for a lot of teams. Unfortunately, that's a starting outfielder stat line for the Phillies based on how the outfield's gone over the past couple of years. One of my other, thoughts about this is people have overrated Harrison Bader, in my opinion. What has come with that is that people are starting to underrate Brandon Marsh. And I understand. We went into this offseason, people wanted change. And I still believe the Phillies need change. I think they changed a lot of their bullpen. They got Adolis Garcia in here. They're going to be bringing up the youth movement. And we're going to get to the youth movement in a little bit, because that is what I'm most excited for coming up this year. But fans are now starting to underrate Brandon Marsh because they lost Harrison Bader. Brandon Marsh last year had a 785 OPS. He had a 747 OPS the year before that. He had an 829 OPS the year before that. The way people talk about Brandon Marsh, you would think he's a bottom 5 outfielder in the entire league. Yes, how much do you give into MLB Network rankings? Not much. He was ranked, I believe it was the 10th best left fielder in baseball a few days ago. Like, the way the fan base is starting to talk about Brandon Marsh is very much underrating what Brandon Marsh brings, especially against righties. And I understand people probably are starting to get tired of platoons. They want guys in here that are going to play every day. Brandon Marsh, unfortunately, has not gotten to the point where he can hit left-handed pitching consistently. He had a 577 OPS against lefties last year. He had an 838 OPS against righties after not having a hit the entire month of April. Brandon Marsh was nearly on an all-star trajectory from May to October strictly against right-handed pitching. I understand where the comeback is here, and fair, completely fair, is the playoff numbers. They're not great. Brandon Marsh has not necessarily been great in the postseason for the Phillies, and I'm trying to pull that up here really quick. But it hasn't been pretty for Marsh, and it's the situation of, the playoffs are so hard for platoon players specifically, because, that Dodgers series, you only get 4 games, right? And say they throw Snell out like they did, Brandon Marsh all of a sudden has to go to the bench for a game, come back, come into a do or die game. Like, playoffs for platoon players are difficult, because, you're not in throughout the season. Baseline, what starters you're going to be facing for an upcoming series, a few series out. You can kind of plan, what is coming for you in the next couple weeks. Brandon Marsh, when you get to the playoffs, you don't know. And all of a sudden it's today on the bench. Tomorrow, you have to come in and make an impact instantly against Shohei Ohtani, right? Like, it's difficult to be a platoon player. 785. No, sorry, that is regular season. There we go. He had a 0.77 batting average in 2025 in the playoffs. He was 1 for 13 in 2025. He was 1 for 13 in 2024. 2023, he had a great postseason, but he was 7 for 39 in 2022. Overall with the Phillies, he has a 214 batting average in the playoffs with a 650 OPS. I completely understand. And that is where completely fair pushback for Brandon Marsh. But I just think people are starting to underrate him as a baseball player. He plays a good left field. That's what he's going to be doing this upcoming season. He doesn't have to, I don't want to say play out of place in center, because it's not really out of place. He's just not as good of a center fielder as he is a left fielder. Now he's going to be able to continue to play left field against all right-handed pitching. What they do as a lefty platoon in left field right now, it's not really confirmed. It's leaning towards probably Otto Kemp, but that's kind of where they're at out in the outfield. But I want fans to pull it back a little bit on Brandon Marsh, because he's a valuable left fielder to this team. I understand, like, once again, the postseason stuff and guys not wanting platoons anymore. Unfortunately, platoons stink sometimes. At the same time, Rob Thompson fully committing to an outfield platoon after they got Harrison Bader was a good reason why they had so much outfield production later in the season after the trade deadline. But that's really, kind of where I'm at with Bader Marsh. Once again, first official debut episode of Phillies Report with Luke Arcaini, streaming here on X and YouTube Live. If anyone's got any comments, concerns, questions, as I said sort of in the beginning, these are always going to be free reign. We'll always be live most of the time. We'll always be live. Any thoughts, comments, questions, any sort of questions you have, this can always turn into a mailbag. At the end, I will take some questions if you guys, sort of have them. But what I'm most excited for this upcoming season is I am so excited for the youth of the Phillies. Justin Crawford, Andrew Painter, and then eventually Aiden Miller. The Phillies are going to have Justin Crawford in center field from opening day on. They're going to give him every shot to win the job in spring. And if something goes, incredibly wrong, then they're going to have to reevaluate. But Justin Crawford is going to be the center fielder for the Phillies this upcoming season. And I am unbelievably excited about it. I cannot wait to watch him out there every day on the field. Watching him down in AAA and in AA the last few years, he's just I've been trying to find the right word for him. I think over the last couple years, and I still haven't really found it. If you guys have a word for Justin Crawford's game, maybe you can think of it and I can't. But he just feels like he does the important things right. Maybe it's as simple as he just feels like a winning baseball player. he gets the extra 90. He's hitting for contact. He makes the plays in the outfield. It just feels like he's always giving you 110%. And I understand, the big thing last year with Justin Crawford is why is he not up yet? Why is he not up yet? While the Phillies were struggling in the outfield, they had one of the worst outfields, if not the worst outfield in baseball last year until they got Harrison Bader at the deadline. But the big thing with Crawford last year was, why are they struggling? Like, why are they not bringing Justin Crawford up? And I think most of that was they couldn't guarantee full playing time at the time. And I know that sounds a little crazy, because with the state of how the outfield was. But unfortunately, they said last year that they couldn't supply full-time play for Justin Crawford back in 2025. But now they will be able to. Crawford's going to be the center fielder every day. 2023 at a 332 batting average. 2024 he had a 313 batting average. 2025 last year, a 334 batting average down in AAA, an 859 full season OPS down in 2023, an 805 OPS in 24, and an 863 OPS for the Iron Pigs last year. I think this kid's ready. I am so excited to watch him play center field. I think it's a great opportunity for him. And I think this is officially the start of the next Phillies movement, right? Bryce Harper is not getting any younger. Trey Turner is not getting any younger. Aaron Nola is not getting any. These guys aren't getting any younger. JT Realmuto is not getting any younger. This core that the Phillies have had for so long of these core guys is a good core, right? Harper, Trey, JT, Wheeler, Nola, like that. It's a good core of guys. But what they've struggled with over the years is finding the right young guys. And yes, back in 2022, a lot of stuff worked out with Stott and Bohm and Marsh. And now we're at the point where if Adam Miller flies through the ranks, who knows Alec Bohm's future? Who knows Bryson Stott's future? What's the future with Brandon Marsh? But, this feels like the start of the next youth movement. Justin Crawford, Adam Miller, and Andrew Painter. What sticks out for me about Justin Crawford is that he lives to the opposite field. He is a typical outfielder, slap hitter, just like you're so typical outfielder, slap hitting outfielder. This was from Cole from NBC Sports Philadelphia. Cole, if I could pronounce your last name, I would. Next time I see you, you're gonna have to let me know how to pronounce your last name so I can say it. But it was, I believe he wrote an article this morning about it was around 43% is Justin Crawford living to the opposite field. Rob Thompson for years has praised that, when guys get in slumps, they're trying to pull the ball. They're just yanking the ball over. They're rolling over. Justin Crawford lives to spray the whole field. And I think that one is such an important thing for a young player. Yes, your typical big first baseman prospects that come up and hit 40 home runs a year. And if they're a lefty, every single home run goes out the right field. But, when you get these outfielders that aren't popping 30 home runs, these guys that can steal 40, 50 bases and have a 370 on base percentage for you, they can't just pull every single ball, right? It has to spray the field. And that's exactly what Justin Crawford does. I am very, very excited to watch Justin Crawford. And I didn't want this to just be Crawford. I do want to talk about Andrew Painter and Adam Miller as well, because I believe it was Keith Law the other day had Adam Miller his 6th ranked prospect in all of baseball. Adam Miller is starting to seriously get some unbelievable national praise, and I think it's deserved. So this is what Keith Law said the other day. I have the screenshot pulled up here. It says Miller is a power hitting shortstop who's improved in almost every aspect of the game over his first 2 full seasons in the Phillies system, and he's going to push the Phillies into making some hard decisions about their middle infield before this year is out. Miller started slowly in Double-A last year at the All-Star break with a 26% strikeout rate, as he wasn't getting on plane nearly often enough. After the break, he decided to lower his hands. When in doubt, drop the hands. At his setup and increase his leg kick, helping him square up the ball for more hard contact and game power. He posted a 15% line drive rate before the break and a 24% rate from that point until his promotion to AAA in September, with a 307, 443, 511 slash line across both levels in the second half. He's at least a plus defender at shortstop now and has boosted his game speed to the point where that's plus as well, leading to 59 steals last year in 74 attempts, which is an 80% success clip. Even when he was struggling, he didn't come out of his approach with strong swing decisions across the board that will probably lead to a high OBP this year when he's in AAA, where walk rates are higher anyway due to ABS. This is where I get a little, because I don't think, but listen, it could happen. But Law goes on to say, I don't think he needs a full year at that level before he's ready for the majors, just needing to refine some of his pitch recognition. And there's a good chance that by July 1st, he'll be the best choice for shortstop at Citizens Bank Park. I don't think he'll be the best choice for shortstop at Citizens Bank Park, but I think he's definitely going to need to be an option at Citizens Bank Park in general by the summer. Where does Adam Miller go? That I think is the question Phillies fans have, because if Adam Miller comes out and is just raking and playing a good defense on the left side of that infield, the Phillies are going to have to make a decision in, once they get to the summer. Can Adam Miller play third? Probably, yeah. Do you start to experiment? And I know Jack Fritz brought this up a little bit ago. Do you start to experiment with Adam in the outfield in spring training? Not start him in the outfield for all games and completely change him to an outfielder, but do you make the decision to start to see what he could do in the outfield? Do you give him 1 game a week in AAA in the outfield from April to June? Just see what he has out there. Because, obviously right now, Alec Boehm is the third baseman. Trey Turner is the shortstop. And, I know people are going to say move Trey to second, ditch Stott, or move Trey to center. Trey Turner's not going to the outfield. It's just not happening. So it's going to have to be second or third, I believe, for Adam Miller. Last year contract for Alec Boehm, he's set to make $10.2 million this year. If Boehm struggles a little bit, or if Boehm's having a good year, do you look to trade Boehm at the deadline and try and get something for him before he walks in free agency this offseason? There's no way Alec Boehm's coming back after this coming season. The Phillies aren't re-signing him. Do you try to get something for Boehm at the deadline, and there is your spot for Adam Miller right at third base, or if it's Stott the third, Miller to second, whatever it is. But there's going to be a lot of options on the table. And the way Miller is on track right now, it seems like these decisions are going to have to be made once we get, to around the summertime. From the Burn Mitch here, hopefully those 3 can perform like they have in AAA. Not sure Painter is ready. Biggest issue is Harper and JT's chase rate. Need to cut that down. Oh, the old chase rate. I figured that would be in here soon. Yeah, everyone needs to not chase more. No matter what your chase rate is, everyone needs to chase a little less. But I do agree. Harper just, needs to have a little bit more of a patient approach along with JT, and I think a lot of guys on this roster. And the last one is Andrew Painter. And as at the Burn Mitch says, not sure Painter is ready. I think Painter's ready. I think he's ready to come up and be in the rotation. Andrew Painter didn't have a good year last year. There's no doubt about it. The Phillies also admitted to they were, working through things with a young kid coming back from Tommy John surgery and going through the process the right way. There was no reason to completely rush him back, throw him in the rotation last summer, and just hope things worked out. This is your top pitching prospect, the guy that you have turned down some trade offers for elite baseball players over the last 3 years because you believe so much in this guy. There's no reason to rush him back. There was never a reason, to just throw him up in the majors last year. But I think a full spring training for Painter is really going to help. I think being down in Clearwater with guys like Zach Wheeler, even though Zach Wheeler isn't 100% healthy and won't be 100% healthy by time spring training starts or even by time the season starts, I think just being around guys for a full spring like Zach Wheeler, like Aaron Nola, like Jesus Luzardo, a good Florida buddy of Andrew Painter. I think Andrew Painter being around these guys on the Phillies rotation can only help him. There is a spot for Painter to be, the fourth or fifth starter, however you look at it, between him and Walker for those last two spots. But I think Andrew Painter has a big chance here to, finally get things going, and prove that, yes, this is why the Phillies didn't trade me for these elite, established players, because Andrew Painter is one of the most talented prospects there is when he's healthy. When the Phillies drafted him, this kid was the real deal. And I truly believe that he still is the real deal. Once again, you're listening to Phillies Report with Luke Arcaini, the debut episode here. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, thank you so much. If you're in the stream here on Twitter or X or on the Pick Swap Media YouTube, drop any thoughts down in the comments. Here, I'll throw a little hypothetical. What prospect are you most excited for? I'm going to give you 4 options, actually, not 3. Justin Crawford, Andrew Painter, Aiden Miller, or Gabriel Rincones Jr., because I think that's a 4th guy that could have an impact in the outfield for this Phillies team in the upcoming season, because the Phillies are going to be doing a lot of relying on Otto Kemp. It seems like the Phillies, in a perfect world, I think the Phillies, based on their roster right now, want Kemp to be the platoon partner with Brandon Marsh in left field. If that works out, we don't know 100%. It should. I think Otto Kemp looked completely fine in left field. I'll say this: he looked better in left field than he did at third base last year. So I think that is their plan, even if they haven't said it out loud. That's kind of what I've gauged. The entire organization, it has been heavily praising Otto Kemp. Last week, Rob Thompson said he continues to put Otto Kemp in that, young talent pool with Crawford, Painter, Miller, Rincones. It's really the 4 that I named and Otto Kemp as their, 5 young guys to watch over, the next 12 to 18 months. But I think Rincones has a shot, a power hitting, a power hitting, left-handed hitting outfielder could make a difference for this team if he can come up and continue to hit how he has and continue to improve like he has over the years down in the minors. But the Phillies youth movement is exciting, and this hasn't been the best offseason. I think everybody knows that. But this is the new wave of the Phillies youth movement, and it's exciting. The organization is excited about it. The prospects look like they are going to have an impact, and finally there's spots for them to have an impact. Justin Crawford is going to play every day in center field as long as nothing goes completely downhill with Andrew Painter, and I don't expect it to at all. He's going to be in your starting rotation probably on March 26th. Aiden Miller is going to have a spot on this team once he plays a little through AAA, and he's ready to come up. Rincones is going to have a shot to compete for a roster spot on March 26th out of spring training. These guys are going to have the chance. Now it's the matter of if they do it, but the spots are there, the holes are there for them, to really make an impact. The last thing, I kind of wanted to get into today before we answer any questions here. Once again, if you have any questions, comments, anything, fire away down in the chat here on Twitter, YouTube, or whatever you are watching on. But one of my last, my biggest take for the rest of the Phillies offseason is that they need one more starter. I think I really think they need to bring in, even if it's a swing guy, they need another option. Right now they have, Right now they have Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Aaron Nola, Andrew Painter, and then Walker. That is your 5 right there that's your rotation. Those are your 5 guys. After that, I don't know. Like, the Phillies don't have the starting pitching depth that they've had in previous years. Taijuan Walker has been a, insurance policy at times in the past couple years. And yes, once injuries happen, he automatically gets thrown back into the rotation, but he's been sort of an insurance policy / 6th starter kind of thing. He's your 4th starter right now. If Taijuan Walker goes down, or Andrew Painter goes down, or Jesus Luzardo goes down, or any of these guys go down for a month, you're probably getting a month of Alan Ronhell starts right now. That's not promising. There was a list from John Heyman yesterday that I kind of wanted to point out here. As far as starters / swingman still on the board. Top guys, not expecting Framber. Would be cool. Don't expect the Phillies to spend the money. Zach Gallen is an interesting one for me. I'm pretty in on if they could give Gallen a short year term, kind of on a prove it deal after a bit of a rough year last year. Zach Gallen is definitely a name to watch for me. Chris Bassett, Lucas Giolito, Martinez, Verlander, Scherzer, Savali, Zach Littell. Jose Quintana is also a bit of a sneaky one. I'd have to delete some tweets. That's for sure. But, there are a lot of names out there that I think, one could definitely fit the Phillies. And honestly, I'd be shocked if the Phillies weren't, in that 4 to 5 starting pitching market right now. Because I think Dave Dombrowski has to look at this current rotation and realize that right now, if you have one injury to this rotation, you're going to AAA immediately to get a guy. And there isn't a single proven starter in AAA right now that you're confident to give the ball to 5 times in a month. They have to get a starter. I think that's the last thing they need. Obviously, if they want to go find, a cheap left field platoon bat, I think Randall Grichuk is the obvious one to put out there with Brandon Marsh. But I mean, they could get creative. They could make a trade. But the starting pitching depth is still where I'm starting to get a little nervous right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. First episode of Phillies Report, the debut episode of Phillies Report with Luke Arcaini, brought to you by Foco. Once again, I got bobbleheads back there. The overalls are in the closet. Anything you need from Foco, they have it. My link is down in the description, also in my Twitter bio. Thank you guys for hanging out. This is going to kind of be the vibe of most of the podcast. It's going to be free to open questions, comments, any thoughts, anything you want to talk about. Once again, like I said, if you want to talk about Bigfoot, like some guy in my reply said the other day, we'll talk about Bigfoot. We're going to talk about whatever you guys want. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Phillies. We're going to talk about what's hot And we're going to talk about spring training coming up because we are, I believe it's 2 weeks. Yeah, so it's under 2 weeks away from the Phillies' first workout. Wednesday, February 11th is the first official pitchers and catchers workout. I heard a few guys are down there already. Orion Kirkering's down there working with JT Realmuto, who is also down in Clearwater. There's a couple guys down there getting their work in already. But thank you guys for listening once again to the debut episode of Phillies Report. You can follow us on Instagram, Phillies Report Pod. If you were already following Luke and I, Phillies, on Instagram, it's the same Instagram, just a new @ now. Obviously, you can always follow me on Twitter @ Arcaini Luke. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter @ Arcaini Luke on all socials. I also just did make a Substack the other day. Still trying to figure that out. Haven't really figured out what the deal over there is. But I at least made the account. The podcast will be available on there if you are a Substack person. I'm still trying to figure that out. Diving in the back end of some new softwares and apps here. But you can find everything you need from me on Twitter @ Arcaini Luke. This is the newest episode of Phillies Report, the debut episode of Phillies Report with Luke Arcaini, always available on all of your podcast networks. And I will talk to you guys next time. Peace.